Hello everyone, it's BellaDovah and today I'm going to teach you all of my must-have cheats for The Sims 2 as well as how to use a userStartup.cheat file to both shorten cheat codes and to automatically enable some cheats so you never have to type them out again. This will save you from having to remember long complex cheat codes and also save you a lot of time. It will also bring building functionality on par with The Sims 3 and much more. All the information in this video can also be found in written format on my website as well as a downloadable copy of my personal user startup cheat file. The link to the webpage can be found in the video description. To start with, I'll show you a few cheats I only ever type out in full in game before moving on to what is in my userStartup.cheat file. We'll start with some basics, but do keep watching even if you know these first ones because I almost guarantee you'll learn about a cheat you didn't know before in this video. To open the cheat box, you hold down the Control, Shift and C keys on your keyboard all at the same time, and then the cheat box will open and you can type something in and press enter to enter the cheat. So this wouldn't be a video about The Sims 2 cheats if I didn't include the one everybody probably already knows, which is Motherload. And that simply gives the family an extra 50,000. Ta-da! You could definitely shorten this cheat in your user startup file if you want to, but for me Motherload's just so classic that it would be harder to remember an alias shortened version than just Motherload. So I just leave it as Motherload. Next, if you want to give them a bit less money, there is Kaching, which just gives them 1,000 simoleons. So now it's gone to 562. But the one I use mostly to manage funds, I never really actually use Motherload or Kaching because I don't like it making the game easier on myself. But I use the FamilyFunds cheat. So you go FamilyFunds, then you type in the name of the family. A tip, it does work even if the family name has 2 words, and it doesn't predictably work if you have multiple families in the neighborhood with the same family name. So what I tend to do is when that happens, when you have multiple families with the same surname, is I rename them. I'll have like a goth with Roman numerals. This is what I did for Veronaville anyway. I'd have goth 1 and goth 2 and goth 3. It doesn't change the Sims last name, just the household name. I make different so that I can use this cheat reliably because there won't be multiple families with the same name, so it will always work for the intended family. But I don't think it works just like this. So in a case like this where you have a space in a family name, you just want to put quotation marks around the whole name and then it will pick up even spaces in it. But we don't need to do that for the goths. It's just goth in this case. And then you put in the number you either want to set it to or adjust it by. So this cheat has 2 uses. You can set a specific amount to set the household funds to, or you can take away or add money. So I could say, well, I've just cheated to give them 51,000, so I want to get rid of that now. So I'd put minus 51,000 and enter, and there we go, it's back to what it was. By the way, if you want to use a cheat multiple times, you can open the cheat box and just press the up arrow and you can keep cycling through. So if I just type up once, then I get the cheat back. But this time I want to actually just set it to a hard number of 500,000. So if I do that, it will nicely set it to 500,000. And similarly, you can also add funds with it. So I'll add another 11,000 to them, which is more like what they had before. And ta-da! That's a very useful cheat for managing finances. Again, I'm pretty sure you can actually shorten the family funds bit. You could have it just to FF in your user startup. I don't, because you tend to be doing a lot of typing anyway. You've got to put the family name and the amount you want. So I don't really mind having to type in family funds. It's not long. It's not difficult to remember. So that's why I just use it like this in game rather than a shortened version. So that's the basic money finances out the way, but now I want to show you a really exciting cheat that I very recently found out about and I think is really likely that you probably don't know this one, so let me know. And that is the Sim DNA cheat. So if I type in Sim DNA and then just put someone on the lot's first name in, so I could go Cassandra, I then get this message box which tells me what her eye colour is and her I think her dominant and recessive eye colour. Same with the hair colour, she's got dominant and recessive black hair colour. And her express skin tone, again, I'm pretty sure that's dominant and recessive. And then skin tone range, I don't really understand. And then also what her dominant features are. So she's got a dominant nose, brow, mouth, and jaw, which means it's more likely that her offspring will take on the features from her than the father, unless perhaps they also have the same dominant features. So now let's try it with Don. It doesn't have to be a family member, they just have to be on the lot. It just has to be the first name. So if I just type in SimDNA Don now, I now get a report for his. So we can see that both his dominant and recessive eye colour is green. Same with the hair. So it's basically 100% that this couple's children will have black hair and the medium dark skin tone because they both have the same. Don's dominant facial regions are nose, cheek, cheekbones, and jaw. So, since they both have dominant noses and jaws, it could go either way what the children pick up more of, but it's more likely that they'd get Don's cheek and cheekbones and Cassandra's brow and mouth structures. How fascinating is that? I used to use it because I used to be terrible at telling the difference between the different blue eye colours, especially if you've, recently got some different default replacements you aren't quite used to yet. Rather than having to zoom in really close to check what their eye colours are, I've just gone the lovely Maxis ones that are going on at the moment because this is a pretty much file without really many mods at all. But yeah, so you can use that to see what DNA they've got going on. Bet you didn't know that. Please let me know if you did. It was revolutionary when I found that out like last year. Next, we also have the unlock career rewards cheat. As we can see, Cassandra does not currently have access to any of the career rewards. But if I now type in unlock career rewards, it will now unlock them all for Cassandra so she can get whichever ones she wants once. But only for her, it only unlocks it for the active sim. So Mortimer hasn't got any except the science one he should already have access to, yet he actually earned that fair and square. I don't really use this cheat because I instead use a mod that makes the career rewards available as aspiration rewards. I don't have it in right now, but to me I think that's a much better way to more fairly earn these otherwise very inaccessible career rewards, and something to spend all those aspiration reward points on. I never really use them up, so it adds a lot more interesting things in the catalogue to be able to spend them on. But since I did use it for the last video to have the disaster of the plastic surgery machine go on, I thought I would mention it. So again, you could have that as an alias if it's something you wanted to use, but because I don't really use it, it's not in my userStartup.cheat, but I thought I'd mention it anyway. The last one I want to mention that I only ever use in game and even now don't use anymore really is the set hour cheat. So we can see it's 5:30 p.m. at the moment, but I could use a set hour cheat to say I want it to be 1 p.m. So I just put set hour to 13 and then it becomes 1 p.m. in the day. They've got a bit more time. I don't really use that anymore because there is a much better MoveObjects, and that is SimNopke's Time and Weather Manager, and you can use this to set hour. But the better thing about this is you can also use it to set the minute, whereas set hour, it just has to be on the hour. But you can use that to set the specific minute and also the day of the week, because the set hour cheat can only be used to adjust the time within that day. So if I want to skip it to the next day, I would have to use a model like this, and I recommend this one, to set the day of the week to Tuesday, and then I can adjust the time accordingly. You can't use a set hour cheat to change days. I mean, you can set it to midnight and then wait for it to tick over and set it to whatever else you want. But bear in mind, this cheat can really screw up the scheduling of things, so I don't recommend you using it very much. Obviously, needs won't change and things like that. It does keep what's going on very much static to the time it was before you set it. It just changes the time. But what I use changing the time for now using this object is when I've had Sims go on vacation. When they return and it's the time that they left, I prefer to then manually set it to the time that they got back for some realistic contingency there. So yeah, if you're interested in the set hour cheat, that is it, but you don't really need that cheat if you use this time and weather manager. I can't believe I nearly forgot about this little gem, so I'm just chiming in while I'm editing to cover it, and that is the very useful load lot cheat. So have you ever wanted to load in a owned business in build mode just to take a look at it, or make a quick change that you for whatever reason don't want to come out of the owner's funds? You can do that with the load lot cheat. So I'm here in Blue Water Village. So let's say I want to load Club Dante, owned by Malcolm. If I in the cheat box and type in load lot, and in quotations, because it's 2 words, we put Club Dante. I think the capitalization is important, that it is this exact same as what the lot is called. Enter, and then it will load that lot in build mode. So now we're here, we can take a good look at it, and we can change things in buy mode if we wanted to. Lastly, before we move on to my user startup cheat, I just want to show you a trick that if you type in a cheat wrong, you've made a typo, so you put in mother lad. You get this error, and then it's always there, even if you escape out of it and then open it up again. It's a bit annoying, so all you need to do is type in the X letter and press enter, and then it minimizes it again, so it's not big and intrusive anymore, and I thought that was a handy tip. Next, let's move on to going through how to make a user startup cheat if you don't have one, and also what is in mine. So all you want to do is navigate to your documents, EA games, the Sims 2 or the Sims 2 Ultimate Collection, and the config folder. And see, I have one here already, and I'll show you in a second, but let me just move it out as if you don't. So here's what yours might look like if you don't have one. You might already have one if you've installed a lighting mod, which you can then expand upon. I'll touch back on that in a little bit. But anyway, if it looks like this and you don't have one, what I recommend doing is, as you can see with these other files here, I can see it said .ini or a .xml. By default on Windows, these file extensions, the file types, are hidden, which is very unuseful. It's good to see what a file type is. So I would recommend going to this view drop down on Windows 11, and at the bottom going to show, and as you can see I've got this file name extensions ticked. If you don't, you want to click that to tick it, and then you should be able to see these dot and whatever file types there are. Now if you right click in this folder and then go to new text document, you can now see it's got the txt, but in this case we want to get rid of all of it, and then type in exactly user with lowercase u startup with a capital S, and then a .cheat, exactly like that, and hit enter. And then you should get a warning telling you you are changing the file name extension. Are you sure you want to change it? Yes, because we don't want it to be a text document, we want it to be a cheat file. And then you should see that the type becomes cheat and not text document. So that's how to start a brand new one from scratch if you want to, but you can always download mine from my website, and if you're installing a lighting mod, it might come with a starter one that you can then build on, as I said. So if you just start one new, it will be empty and you can put what you want in it. But I'm going to get rid of that and put mine back, and then open that up and show you what I've got. So let me jump to the bottom here, and as you can see I've got a cinema secrets section because that is my lighting mod. So when you download cinema secrets, it comes with a userStartup.cheat file that you can just drag and drop into yours if you don't already have one, or you open it up, copy these lines into yours. So if you have something that requires certain cheats in this file, such as a lighting mod, ensure they're still here in some way. I've got mine still in the section at the bottom, but everything else is what I have personally added to it. So these ones at the top are what are automatically enabled all the time, no matter what, I never have to think of them again if I don't want to. So the first one is boolProp testing cheats enabled true. The classic. You might have heard the scaremongering that, oh, it's dangerous to have that enabled all the time. False, it is not. It's just a very powerful cheat that you can do potentially dangerous things if you want to, but I am pretty sure you would be looking to do that if you were doing that. Nothing's just going to break on its own because you've got this cheat on. If you start looking into some of the features of it, you need to be careful, but nothing's going to happen by accident. You're not going to accidentally stumble across doing anything game breaking, and even some of the things that were said to be game breaking aren't even anymore. If you watch April Black's video on corruption, proving that most of it is actually a myth. So don't worry about it. This cheat is much more helpful and safer to have on, in my opinion, because what it does, one of the many things it does, is it will actually mean you see error messages. So when an object error occurs, you will get a pop-up telling you about it, and you have options whether to cancel, reset, or delete. Most of the time, resetting is what you're going to want to try and do. Unless it keeps continually happening, then you might want to try the other options. But without that, when something's going wrong in your game, Sims will just start jumping around, jittering around, and that's scarier. You have no idea what's going on. At least if you can see the error message, you might get a brief inkling about what it's to do with, and then you can go and look in your error logs, and if you're asking for help somewhere, like on the very helpful Reddit, you'll be able to show the error message and your error log. So it's much better to be aware of when things are going wrong in the game rather than just weird things happening like Sims jumping around. So I think it's really important to have that information available to you. It of course does many other things, so you can shift click on Sims, and what I did just to get that error was force error, which can be really helpful to do deliberately if you think your Sim's a bit stuck, acting a bit weird. You can use this to force an error on them and then reset them, and then that might get them out of their stuck state. That's a big thing I use it for. It's also extremely helpful. Probably my main use of it is to shift click on a Sim that is visiting, not in your household. You can actually make them selectable and then control them, and there's no harm in doing that whatsoever. You just have to be careful about, ruining their schedule, their aging, or their work schedule and things like that. But other than that, you can just control your guests really if you want to, and then just right click again and make them unselectable if you're done with them or you want to avoid them aging or something. Another very helpful thing is that you can drag pretty much anything up. So I can drag needs. Again, I don't really tend to cheat like that unless something feels a bit unrealistic. If something's made them really tired and I think they just shouldn't be quite that tired, I might just nudge it up a little bit. Things like that. You can also adjust relationships the same way. So you can drag relationships up. You have to press play for the number to change. But yeah, you can just drag those bars up. You can adjust skills freely. And that's very good if you have made a new Sim and they're an adult. It would be more realistic if they had a couple of skills already. So you can use this to just drag them up. You can also alter Sims' personalities beyond the normal limit if you want as well. I sometimes have some gameplay rules where if this happens, then that means they've gained a neatness point or lost a neatness point. So that's a way I make my Sims evolve along like that. You can adjust interest points the same way and hobby enthusiasm, but that will decay. So yeah, very useful for that. There's also, this is what I mean when people say it's dangerous. There's so many different options of what you can do. You can spawn all kinds of like debugging objects, but you're not going to go here unless you're looking and you know what you're doing. So just having this cheat on is not going to make you do anything weird unless you're trying to. So honestly, don't worry about it. Just if you're trying to do something specific, just make sure you're following a tutorial or something. I don't tend to touch those. Maybe if I'm like trying to batch age my townies. There's also a load of objects to the mailbox. Not something I ever use in my day-to-day. It also enables the debug clothing objects in CreateSim if you hit the Shift and N keys. Unfortunately, that doesn't seem to work in like gameplay. So again, I'm never really in CreateSim playing with the pre-made, so that's not a use for me. Oh, also you can satisfy once. If you hold Control and click a 1, it will like manually satisfy it. So that's a way to, you know, cheat the rerolls happening or aspiration points going on. I don't use it like that. Again, don't cheat, don't make things more interesting. But I have had situations where a want hasn't satisfied when I think it would have. There's sometimes cases where getting a kitten or puppy doesn't satisfy when your cat has or dog has had a litter. So I've used it to satisfy that before. And sometimes I find the microphone singing one doesn't work as I think it would. So if I've already had a sim interact with the microphone and they've still got the one, I'll manually click it. I think they've done that, so it's only fair. Things like that. Notice that I actually do also have aliases for this cheat to turn it on and off. And why I have that is a very specific use case. If I am ever using the bat box to force errors on a lot of things, is you've got your on in-world, on all, and on off-world options. If some things in the background are kind of seeming stuck, it can be a good idea to use this to just reset everything and get everything running smoothly again. However, if you have testing cheats enabled true at the time, you will get like hundreds of error messages one after another that you will have to click reset on, which is very annoying and makes your hands sore. So if I feel the need to use any of these objects, I will actually use my alias to turn it off. So I put in cheats off, so it's much shorter, and then it will just do its thing. So if I just, there we go, everyone's just reset on their own without having been bombarded with messages. I can now put it back on and it functions as normal, and then still, because it is in my section that is on all the time automatically, you know, next time I load the game or another lot, it's just always on as it was before. But let me show you what I mean if I now do it with it on. This is, you know, this is what you have to do. I regret doing this because there's basically no escape unless you have done this. Yeah, and it can really take a long time.
One eternity later.
God, the things I do for demonstration purposes, that was painful. I had to use a task manager to force quit the game actually, because it just it takes so long. It's very unpleasant on the eyes and the fingers to click through all those errors. I don't recommend using the box like that unless you have a specific reason to, you know, something's going wrong in the background and you think there's a good chance that might help reset it. But yeah, if you're going to do that, you don't want to have to click through all of those. So that's why, even if you have it always on like me, it's still a very good idea to have an alias for both the on and off, so you can like disable it and re-enable it as you need to. But I'll get on to aliases, how aliases work, after we finish going through my section of always on cheats. So the next two are boolProp allow 45-degree angle of rotation, and I'll also cover this one at the same time. boolProp quarter tile placement enable true. I have those always on. There are two versions of this cheat that work in game, but only one of them works in the userStartup.cheat file, which is this one. So I actually have quite a popular Tumblr post about how to permanently enable quarter tile placement, but this really isn't actually that useful anymore. I used to think it was not possible to do this with the userStartup file because there is this cheat, set quarter tile placement on, and if you use that in game, it works. But if you put it in your userStartup.cheat file, it will not. So when I first wrote this tutorial, because there are another way of enabling it, editing a different file, so you can do it like that. But I have more recently discovered there is no need, because there is the other version of the cheat, boolProp quarter tile placement enable true, and you can just put that in your userStartup as I have now. So this one works. So if you've ever tried this before and wondered why it doesn't work, that's why. And if you have, you know, put it in your global props file instead, that's fine. But there's no real need. It can be in your userStartup with the boolProp one. Either way though, you do still have to press Control and F while you're in game to actually enable it. So with these two mods now, with the 45-degree angle of rotation, if I now use the crocodile greater than more than keys on my keyboard, the ones between the M letter and the question mark, I can rotate an item at a 45-degree angle instead of only 90 degrees. Bear in mind, if you're using the mouse to spin, that's still only 90 degrees. You have to use those keys to be able to do it. As for the quarter tile placement, even if you type the cheat in full in game, however you've enabled it, for example, I have in my user startup, you have to actually enable it by pressing Control and F while you're in game. Nothing happens when you do that, but I just have. But now you will be able to see that you can actually place things on quarter tile. You can just press Control F again to turn it back off. So sometimes you want to make absolutely sure you are placing it on a full tile and it's useful to toggle off. But just Control F makes you be able to put things on a quarter tile rather than a full tile and have a much more object freedom. So now you can actually place where does this dining table need to be? Let's see. It's a bit too small for the room, really, isn't it? That's the problem. But you can actually use the quarter tile placement to put a table bang in the center of a room rather than it having to be locked to full tiles. You just have to be very exact with how you line the chairs up. See, that's get out the way, like. See, that's not right. I've put it too close. It's got to be like that. So yeah, that's my only tip. So if you've ever tried this and thought it doesn't work, you just have to be very accurate about where you actually place the chairs next to the table for them to be able to work on a quarter tile, but they will if you do it right. The next cheat is so underrated, and that is float prop TV volume and then whatever number you want. I personally have it to 0.2. I think it's anything from 0 to 1 that you want to put in. The TVs in The Sims 2 are so obnoxiously loud by default, but using this cheat and in your user start file especially, it will make them automatically always be quieter, and it is just so much better. I cannot recommend this cheat enough. It's so underrated. It doesn't have to be 0.2. You could try 3, 4, 1 even. But yeah, experiment with that to lower the volume of the TVs and thank me later. Next, we have two specifically for pets, and that is control pets true and pet action cancel true. A lot of people don't like these, I have got the impression, because they're like, oh, it's the design of the game, it's not realistic to control pets. Well, it's not really realistic to control other humans now, is it? But bear in mind, having these on doesn't disable their free will or change how they will behave when you're not doing. It's just when it is handy to actually see what they're doing or make them do something, it's available to you. You don't have to do any messing around, it's just there when you want it. So the goths have just adopted Sweets, and here he is. I can now direct him to do things if I want to. I can make him go over there. And I can also cancel out things in his queue. It can just be handy when you need it, but they will still behave as they did before. It just enables something in case. I don't see any reason to kind of have that locked away. It doesn't force you to have to control them. It's just there when it's handy. Sometimes they get a bit stuck, so you know, if you've tried several times to get them to the bath but the routing keeps going on, you know, in the case of a dog and there's a big dog and they're trying to behave and go to the bath but they can't with the routing, you can have them walk past the bath first to be then shouted from the other side, things like that. Cats sometimes will sit on the counter far too long until their needs are absolutely dire, so you can then cancel out like sit on counter interaction, things like that. And sometimes when pets, a lot of their needs are suffering all at once, the AI isn't brilliant in actually prioritizing solving those. So if you see, you know, and them in a really red state, you can just help them out, direct them to the food bowl and then to pee or to bed or things like that, instead of just letting them, you know, keep falling asleep on the floor and then waking up because they're hungry and things like that. So it's just very useful to have when you need it, but they will still 99% still be able to be the smart pets that they are, going about their own business. The next 4 lines maybe a little bit overkill, but it works for me. So firstly, we've got improp maximum of visiting sims, and you can set that to whatever number you like. I say a 250, and this is about, for example, the amount of sims that you can invite to a party. Your computer will most likely very struggle, the game may even crash if you actually invite 50 sims over, but for me these are limits and I don't want them to be limiting. I want to be able to invite all the sims I want to come to a party, and this enables me to do that. I don't really have to think about running out of, slots of people to invite. It's just not limited, but you still just can use your own common sense if it's getting a little bit much. It's not to say every party you have 50 sims have got to come. You can change it to whatever you want. The max's default is 8, but I think the way that works is the amount of sims currently in the family on the lot are included. So if you already have 5 sims and the default limit is 8, that's why you'll see that sometimes you can only invite 3 people to a party and things like that. So yeah, just having this number higher, whatever you want, 10, 25, 30, 50, you can invite more people to a party. For the next ones, this is about how many sims you can have in your active household. I don't know really if you need all 3, but it works for me. So I have uimprop max total sims set to 50, and uimprop max total humans as 25, and uimprop max total pets as 25. So as far as I understand, that means I could have up to 50 sims in a household, 25 of them being humans and 25 of them being pets. Again, not a limit I would ever actually reach, but that just makes it, it uncaps it basically, and I don't have to worry about, oh well, this cat's only gonna have 1 kitten because there's no more room in the house, or things like that. Just as many people as we want. I tend to play big dorms at the same time, so you can have a dorm with 20 rooms. I like to be able to play 20 students if I want to, and these cheats let me do that. So I'm going to use one feature of the testingCheatsEnabled cheat and cheatily give Cassandra a cell phone so that she now has one, and now she can throw a party. So if I say, let's have a wedding party, she's supposed to be getting married. When this dialogue comes up, as we can see, we can actually invite 49 guests. So we could invite all of these sims and much more if she knew more without having to worry about a limit. I found this really helpful in Veronaville because obviously there's few families but very big families, so you can have those big family parties. You just have to be careful not to push your computer too far and save regularly to avoid those crashes. But generally, I would very safely say you can have at least some more than the max's default, even if you don't have a very good computer at all. The max's default is very limiting, made for very, very old, much worse machines than I guarantee you've got now. So feel free to use those sheets to bump it up a bit, even if not as extreme as I've gone. Next, I've got boolProp don't merge NH Flora false. And what this does, I believe, is makes you able to see more trees and things from lot view. You can see further out, and more trees and things will be rendered in distance. So it looks a lot more alive. Look at how far you can see the trees. So yeah, that does improve the visuals and feel of the game. Another one in a similar vein people tend to have in this part is this uimprop lot skirt size increase. I think when you install skyboxes and things, that's the recommended amount is 120. That's actually quite a lot. I would much rather recommend this tutorial by Epe, which actually teaches you how to set the values of these in-game view distance options to be much higher than they are by default. So I don't need that cheat because I have got the view distance set to extra large, and because I followed that tutorial, that is actually that 120 option. But even if I set it to small, medium or large, they are all still bigger than the max's defaults. But if you're having some, issues, having a very big view distance can be a culprit of the ping and strain on your game. So I could still turn it down to large and it look good and be a lot bigger than the maxes as large, and you have some options and some wiggle room. Different options might work better for different lots. So I much rather have that flexibility that IP teaches here rather than just having this sort of hard coded in my user startup cheat. And lastly, in my auto enabled section, I have got boolProp's show catalog EP flags set to true. And what this does is when I go into my bill catalogs, each item will tell you what pack the item came from. So that's an easy way of telling what was in base game, what was in IKEA, university, all the packs. You'll know where the specific item came from, and I think that can be interesting and useful. So let's move to going on to how aliases work, which is how you shorten cheat code. So as you already said, even though I have testing cheats enabled always on, I still have the alias for on and off, but making them shorter, so I never actually have to type out boolProp testing cheats enabled true ever again. I can just type in cheats on or cheats off to turn it on or off again. You can make it much shorter if you wanted. You could just put C on or C off, whatever you want. So this is the thing to understand. Feel free to download and use mine, but if you don't know what these aliases are or can't remember them or understand them, then you will only get the benefit of these bits. So it's very worth trying to learn these or set them to what makes more sense to you. So mine aren't super short. You can go much shorter. You can have M on instead of move on, but I like to keep them still clearer. So how you set an alias is you write the word alias and then what you want that shorter code to be without quotations, and then you write the cheat it's replacing in quotations next to it. So these 3 lines exactly like this, other than what you actually want the cheat to be and what the cheat actually is, are required. This is for the short description and this is for the long description. You don't actually need those at all. I've just got them in there for sort of completion's sake. This is what will show if you type in the help cheat. There you go, here's another cheat via help. You will see all the cheats available in the game. It's very underrated actually. I've probably not studied this close enough and could probably find even some things that I didn't know, but actually this will pick up the aliases. So this is a great way if you've downloaded mine and you can't quite think of what one of my aliases were. If you type in help, you'll be able to see what it actually is and what that does. So that is very helpful. So yeah, that's why, especially for sharing's sake, I do fill in this short and a long description. They can be the exact same if you want them. I barely have them much different at all. In most cases, they're very self-explanatory. Thinking about it, it would probably even be better to put the exact cheat as a short description instead. Oh well, I still think the way I've done it, it makes sense. You can understand what it does. So they're my 2 for boolProp testing cheats enabled true. But I also have one for move objects on and off. You don't want move objects on always, because a lot of things that place with move objects in The Sims 2 won't work. They'll cause routing errors. So you don't just want to place everything with move objects on. You only want to turn it on to do something specific that you put thought into and know it will still work and Sims will be able to route around it as you expect them to. Don't just have this on all the time. It won't work in your favor, I guarantee you. So just have an alias to shorten down that code. So if I put move on in my game, I can now put things wherever I want. I can put that chair inside the table if I so desire. You can also, put things closer together. And in some cases, things will surprise you and they'll still work. It might clip, but they'll probably actually still work. So you can combine the quarter tile with the move objects on to really get things tightly packed together. And you'll be surprised how much more efficient you can make the space. It might take some trial and error, but it's useful to try when you need it. Next, I have a section for changing the lot zoning cheats. So, you know how when you place a new lot down, you have only got the option to set it to residential or community? And if you're not that familiar with The Sims 2, you might be confused when you've heard people say you can make your own apartments and hotels in The Sims 2, because it isn't obvious. You can't just put a lot down and set it to a hotel or an apartment. You actually have to use a specific cheat to do it. So I just have this Z-Res, Z-Com, Z-Greek, Z-Dorm, Z-Hotel, and Z-Apt to change all the zoning types if I want to. So if I make a new lot and it's residential and I build an apartment lot on it, I just have to type in the Z apt for it to become a apartment instead. I would not recommend using these in a occupied lot though, bear in mind. But yeah, that's how you do it, and that is much easier to remember than the change lot zoning, whatever you want. So we've got residential, community, Greek, dorm, hotel, apartment base. See, like the apartment base, you might forget the base bit, so just having something short like this Z apt makes it much shorter. Next, we've got a dorm build, which is for boolProp dorm specific tools disabled false. And I only have the turn off version of it because I never really found the need to turn it back on. So if you've ever tried to build in a dorm, you may notice you can't for a lot of things. You can put different floors and paint the walls, but you can't build walls or change the doors or anything. It's all disabled. You can't even use the eyedropper tool, which is just wild. Why not? So what this cheat does, and my shortened version, let me get rid of all this, of dorm build. If you're already on the build tab, you won't see a visual difference, but if you just hop over to buy mode and then back to build mode, you'll now see that it's all enabled, so you can make build changes to dorms however you want. You can move dorms around, you can copy doors. I've still got MoveObjects on, probably shouldn't. So yeah, that is how you can build freely in dorms and make the whatever changes you want. However, there is two uses for this cheat. I only found out the other one recently. You can also use this cheat while you are visiting a community lot with a sim to be able to access build and buy mode on it. So if now I put in dorm build here, buy mode becomes available. I do think it's only buy mode, not build mode, but I think that's fine because you do have to bear in mind anything you do while you're on the lot with a sim, it won't persist. So if your sim leaves and then you come back with them again, or another household, or loading build mode, your change won't be here. So it's just useful to grab things out that you've forgotten about. Perhaps you want to set up a little wedding party just while you're here, just grab some stuff like that. Or the main thing I use it for is grabbing my cheat objects out. So I might have a use for the sim blender, or maybe the time weather manager. This is a pool after all, so it might be a bit too cold, so I want to bump it up and make it a really hot day, and then everyone goes in the pool or something like that. You can just grab things out of the buy mode catalog that will come out of your Sims funds and will disappear when you leave. So just use it for little bits and bobs like that. But of course, you can sell anything you want, and it will also add to your current Sims fund. So it's just something to be careful with, but is very handy when you need it. If you've just forgotten a little something and you don't want to have to send them home, edit the lot in build mode and then send them back, you can just grab what you need for right now and carry on playing. Next, I've got another two similar to that dorm build, but this time for apartments. And there's actually two different ones, which can be difficult to remember. So I've got apps base build for boolProp app based lot specific tools disabled for. Can you imagine having to remember that and type that in? This is why we need aliases. It's just app based build instead of all this gobbledygook. So what this one does, the base build, is allow you to build buy freely in unoccupied apartments. But the one for sub build for boolProp app sublot specific tools disable false is for building in occupied apartments. So if you've got a sim already living in an apartment and you think, do you know what, this sim is a telescope enthusiast and there isn't one in the communal outdoor space, you can use this sheet, this one, to put that telescope in the communal area of the apartment lot while your sim's living in it. Whereas this one is for just similar to the dormitory one, just being able to actually access those building tools on an apartment lot. So you can build new walls and things like that. Next, we've got snap off and snap on for boolProp snap objects to grid false or true, and that enables you to place objects on and off the grid. So the default state of The Sims 2 and any Sims game is that objects place on the grid. In The Sims 3 and The Sims 4, I think you can just hold the Alt key to place objects off the grid, but in The Sims 2 we need a cheat, so I've shortened it to snap off. And now I can place objects however I like freely, and then turn it off on with snap on, and then they will continue snapping to the grid or the quarter tile if you have that enabled. So with a combination of snapping off and move objects on, you can make some really nice decorative displays. So if I put it off and I put move objects on, I could make a nice you know, flower arrangement where flowers are, you know, really close together. So you can imagine making like a little potted plant area kind of thing. And sometimes it's helpful for, you know, when you've got the grid on and you're trying to put a plant in the corner, they can end up clipping through the wall. So you could just use snapping off to bring it out that little bit, but not a whole quarter tile so it's really sticking out. Just place it where suits the room best. Next, I have PB off and PB on for Plumbob toggle off and Plumbob toggle on, and that just show and hides the Plumbobs. So by default they are on, but if I just type in PB off, the Plumbobs will hide. There are mods that make Plumbobs disappear forever and permanently. I personally like to see Plumbobs most of the time, but sometimes if you're trying to get a nice screenshot, they can get in the way. So you can just toggle them off like that and then put them back on, and then bada bing bada bum, they're back. Similarly, we've got bub off and bub on for show headlines off and show headlines on. And what they do is hides the speech bubbles. In my experience, if there's already a speech bubble and then you put it in, it won't hide that current speech bubble. It will hide only next one. So nobody's talking at the moment. So if I type in bub off now and then wait for them to get talking, I'm sure they would. Okay, no, they're just smooching. These guys are probably talking, are they? Yeah, listen, he's telling a joke. And as you can see, there's no speech bubble. But if I put it back on, the speech bubbles start to appear again. So again, that's just handy for taking screenshots when they are in the way. Then I've got grid off and grid on for boolProp show floor grid off and boolProp show floor grid on respectively. So what they do is toggle the grid that shows in build or buy mode. So by default in build mode it is on, but if I put grid off, it goes away. So that can be a much nicer way of taking a screenshot in build mode without having to see the floor grids. Or sometimes, especially if you've got snapping on, it can be distracting from what you're doing. You might just want to temporarily turn it off and then toggle it back on like so. Next, I have CFE off and CFE on for boolProp constrain floor elevation false and true. This is a building tool that enables you to do lots of things, but in my opinion is kind of advanced and I haven't really used it all myself yet. So I am going to link to a video by Annie in the description that has a really good tutorial on how to use this cheat, but obviously it's very wordy, so I think even if you rarely plan on using it, especially because then the less you use it, the more likely you are to forget about it, it is handy to have a really intuitive alias to rely on instead. Then I have MNT on and MNT off for modifying neighborhood terrain on and off. So you can actually adjust the level of the neighborhood terrain. I've not heavily used this, but if in neighborhood view I used my alias of MNT on, now if I drag over an area on the neighborhood, that selects it, and then there are some keys. I always have to grab a tutorial. I seem to remember another one, but I've since found this one by Cricket. So you can use the bracket keys for rising and lowering the terrain, pressing / to level or P to smoothen. So I've got this hill selected here. Well, it's quite a gentle hill. So let me try the slash key. That didn't really do anything. Maybe P? Oh, yeah, it did something. It's not brilliant. Maybe I can... Oh, wow. Yeah, I've made a huge hill. Let's lower that back down. Yeah, they're quite extreme, those bracket keys. So I tend to try to use it for the level and smoothing. So I keep pressing P and you can see that smoothing it is making flatter. You can just click off to deselect and then type in off to get rid of the square. And it's very much trial and error, but that might give you a better chance of being able to actually place lots where you've just edited. Obviously placing lots does kind of edit the terrain around it anyway, but sometimes you can't actually place a lot because it's not level enough. Like here on this side of the road. But you get the idea. It can be fiddly, it can still not do what you really want it to do, but it's how you can ultimately start placing lots where you want them. I'm not very good at it, but with a bit of trial and error, a bit of patience, you can make hills or level out terrains in the neighborhood view to be able to place lot down. Oh, we can place one here at least. I don't know if we could before, but at least now we can. So there we go. It can be useful. And lastly, I have lot file on and lot file off for boolProp, show lot package file names true and false. And what that does is when in neighborhood view, if you turn it on, so if I put in lot file on, notice that it's not actually case sensitive. So even though my aliases have capitals, I've done them in camel case, you don't actually have to put the capitals in the cheat box. It's just easier to read them with the capital letters in between each word, but it's easier to write them without having to put the capitals in, so you don't have to. It's not case sensitive. So if I put in lot file on, now when I hover over each lot, it will tell me which specific file in my neighborhood folder that lot actually is, which, you know, can come in handy. I've not really had much use for it. That's why I don't have it on automatically, because it does look a little bit messy and unimmersive as well, in my opinion. But it's there, it's shortened if I want it. If I put it back off, then it just has the normal information available to you. But if you're ever, for whatever reason, needing to go through your neighborhood lot files, it can be helpful to know which lot specifically it is you're looking for. So that is everything. As I said, I have this section because I use the Cinema Secrets lighting mod, which I do recommend. You shouldn't need to change anything, either of these. You just need to be there, be present. So just make sure you're not replacing any cheats you need for a lighting mod or anything else. I'm not aware of anything else. But yeah. So unless my memory is failing me, this, as far as I can think, is all of the cheats I ever use in The Sims 2. So please let me know what your favourites are, and if you learn any you didn't know before, or if you use any that I have missed off on this. I haven't covered any cheating cheats, you know, like maxing motives or aspiration points or things like that, because it's just not my style to make things easy and cheaty. So ironically, even though, you know, this is called cheats, I've not really included the cheaty cheats. It's more utility cheats that I'm covering here, but you can find more cheats using the help cheat or on the wiki and things, and make your own aliases for them or put them in this top section of your automatically enable one. I would recommend downloading mine to use as a base. It can be very overwhelming and tedious to start one brand new from scratch if you don't already have one, so just download it from the post on my website and then make sure you're dragging it into the correct folder of documents, EA Games, The Sims 2 or The Sims 2 Ultimate Collection, and config. This is where you're going to want to put it. And that is all for now. If you found this helpful, consider supporting me by becoming a Patreon or buying me a coffee. All the links are in the description, and join my Discord to stay in touch, and I will see you with more videos about The Sims 2 tutorials and mods very soon. Thanks for watching. Bye guys.